Hey y'all, Rowan here. I am very excited to welcome you all to today's video because we are going to be doing the hashtag tarot bartender prompt list. This is a tag that was created by Imogen over at Sapling Tarot. They did a marvelous job putting together these fabulous prompts. Unfortunately, I am not as educated as they are on the ins and outs of mixology, so I want to give a special shout out to Jennifer at Bohemian Rose Tarot because her video breaks down the recipes for each of the drinks that represent the prompts for this tarot bartender tag, and it's just fabulous. She doesn't cover all of them because she swaps out a couple of prompts, but it was still very, very helpful to me, and I had it playing in the background while I was picking out my decks to double check and make sure that I got the vibe of each drink correct. So we're going to start off with the old-fashioned, your favorite classic tarot deck or a riff on a classic. So from the few videos that I've seen for this tag so far, people have been choosing their favorite version of like classic systems. And so I had a couple of different choices for this deck, but at the end of the day, my favorite version of the Rider-Waite Smith is the Rider-Waite playing card deck. It's little playing card size, right? Original Pamela Coleman Smith artwork, muted color palette, huge borders, but it still lets the image be front and center. I love this version of the deck because of its playing card size, quite frankly. I do want to... A large part of me wants a full-size copy of the Centennial rather than the Centennial in a tin, just so that I can have a version of the deck like that. But this is the version that I have that I love the most. Just the Rider-Waite Smith, but on playing cards. And then, of course, it's got the suits up at the top. You know, I love this deck. It was a gift... one of my earliest tarot decks, not first, but one of my earliest tarot decks, and it was a gift from my husband, and I love this deck. I made this little bag for it that it fits in perfectly, and that tight squeeze gives me life. I love it when the bags exactly fit, like they're tailor-made to the decks that are in them. I tailor-make all of my bags, but not all of them are good, so they don't all come out that way. So our next prompt is the Gin and Tonic, a no-frills, straight-to-the-point deck. So this one almost was my old-fashioned, except it really doesn't feel like a brown liquor. This is... in a black bag that's covered in cat fur. This is the Bianco Nero Tarot. Let me struggle here with the tie for a moment to get it out. But this is a black and white line work deck. It's kind of, it's a little bit in the style of like printmaking. I have trimmed my copy so that it has no borders and sharp edges. It's kind of like etching style. I love this deck. This was the first deck I ever bought for myself and resonated with. There was a deck that I purchased for myself before this one, but it didn't work for me, and so I gave it to a friend. But this one really made it easy for me to learn tarot. It is definitely a no-frills, straightforward, to-the-point deck. And its black and white nature contributes to that, as does the echoings of the symbolism from the original Rider-Waite Smith. It does bring a lot of sensuality to the original cards, but that sensuality, and it's a little bit dry. Like, this sun is just, man, he's just existing. These people, are they happy about life? I don't think so. But this is a very dry deck, much like a gin and tonic, which to me is a very dry drink. Look, okay, I drink a lot. I drink too much, but I do not know much about drinks. Let me put it that way. When I go to, well, let me not spoil something we'll get to later in the video. Okay. Number 3, a spritz, a deck to brighten your day. So a spritz is effervescent. It's literally bubbly. And so I wanted to pick a deck that matched that energy, something that makes me happy every time that I use it, but is also very effervescent in its textures, colors, and energy. And for that, I went with this guy right here. This is the Zerner Farber Tarot. The Zerner Farber Tarot, also known as the Enchanted Tarot, I believe. Yes, the Enchanted Tarot, say my notes. I want to get this deck in its full bordered copy because this cardstock, every nice thing I've ever said about it, I want to take back. After working with it for a longer amount of time, I fucking hate this cardstock. But I love the matte gold edges. I do not mind the letters on the back because it's made into this beautiful design. I like the small size of it. It's a little bit too chunky for my tastes for something as small as this is, but I like that it's like barely bigger than my palm. Oh, my cat just knocked my wand down off of altar. I'll deal with that later. This deck is quilted, I believe. It's a mosaic of fabric, and it's absolutely stunning. Oh, he's playing with my wand now. Hold on, I'll be right back. Okay, I took the wand away and gave him a kicker toy instead, but he's screaming in the background, so that's what you're probably hearing. Yeah, buddy! Uh-huh. He's very excited right now. It's like 4 in the morning where I am. So this deck, I don't remember what I was saying, but it's quilted, it's mosaic, it's collage, it's beautiful. The colors, the pinks, purples, blues, greens are very bisexual flag. It's so lush without being covered in greenery. It's plush, it's velvet, it's quilted, it's so fluffy, it has to be considered effervescent to me. I love this deck. I love this deck a lot. I am definitely eventually going to obtain it as the Enchanted Tarot so that I can have what I have heard is better guidebook. So that is my spritz choice. Next, we have number 4, a Dirty Martini. This is a strong and salty deck. So for this one, I had to go with my deck that is in this little pouch right here. This is the Surrealist Tarot. I have edged mine in gold. I don't know if that was a wise choice, but we're here now. I think going back, I think I may have done instead like a bronzy color. I don't know. It's done. What's done is done. I'm not going to trim it. So this deck is definitely salty. This deck tastes like olives for sure. All of these pieces of artwork are inspired by famous surrealist works. They're not literal one-for-one recreations. They're definitely loose tie-ins because they are first and foremost pieces of work for a tarot deck. This is not a I do not believe this is any kind of curated deck. I am quite convinced at this point that all of the artwork was made for this deck. This Queen of Pentacles is one of my favorite Queen of Pentacles. Yes, serving cunt quite fully, quite literally embodying cunt. Okay, love this deck through and through, but it is one I have to be in the mood for because the flavor is so strong. Like I said, it tastes like olives. It's salty, it's briny. It's got this, overwhelming mouthfeel is the only way I can describe it. And for that reason, it gives martini vibes. I'm also considering the shape of the glass that these drinks are traditionally served in because that heavily affects your experience with the flavor. And so the surrealist nature of this deck really reminds me of the exaggerated, caricaturized shape of a martini glass. So that's another reason I picked that one. Then we have number 5, the Pina Colada, a deck for a summer holiday. Now, I want to specify that the Pina Colada is not just any kind of summery flavor. It is rum, and it is tropical in flavor. It's coconut and pineapple and rum, and it is, at least I think that's what's in it. I actually don't remember now that I contemplate for half a second, but I do know that it's tropical. I do know that it's rum, and I do know that it's got a very round mouth feel, and it is sweet to the point of cloying. And so the deck that I wanted to pick for that, I hemmed and hawed for a while over which one I was going to go with, but ultimately I think that the one that most reminds me both of the tropical nature of the energy of a pina colada, but also a deck that reminds me of summer holiday, so both prompt and drink, is the Queer Tarot. The oranges in this deck really bend all the other colors into that tropical zone. I have edged mine in neon green in what I believe to be the sickest edge job I have ever fucking done. Look at that. I've showed it off before, and I've raved about this edge job. And every time I say edge job, the teenager in me chuckles. This deck is a Rider-Waite-Smith clone, but it is, I was about to say a slur. I'm not going to do that. There are certain slurs that I feel I have the right to reclaim, very, very specific ones, but I still don't want to be throwing them around on YouTube. You get me? This deck has big LGBT energy, obviously. All of the models in this deck are queer, and except for their pets. Their pets are just regular pets. The pets don't have to be queer. But they are all rendered so vibrantly. Like, the oranges and the pinks really speak, like, this card especially, this color palette right here really, really feels pina colada to me. It's lacking the green that I associate with pina colada, but the yellow, the orange, the pink, the blue is all there. This card feels like sitting on the beach. This card feels like pina colada, like, yeah, okay, so the Queer Tarot, Pina Colada, I don't think I can explain it more clearly than that. The next prompt, okay, so the next prompt is a hot toddy, a deck for a cold winter's night. I don't like hot toddies. My husband does. I frequently make him what we affectionately refer to as potion, which is my husband is a singer, and so it is a combination of herbs that are meant to, in a combination of herbs in an infusion form, which is tea, boiling water and steeping, a collection of herbs that as infusions are meant to soothe the lungs and throat, and then a couple of shots of an extraction, a tincture, made of some kind of 90 proof. Right now I've got Everclear, but in the future I'm going to get something else. What was I saying? Oh, I've had 2 cups of coffee. My brain is not focusing at all. It is just going. 2 shots of the essence of potion, which is a tincture of similar herbs that are, as a tincture, meant to help the throat and lungs. So those hot toddies are not, they're like really medicinal. And so a hot toddy to me has always been something that's all about healing. Like, it's an alcoholic beverage that's about healing. Similar to if you were to get picked up by a Saint Bernard while getting stuck mountain climbing in wherever Saint Bernards are. The Alps? I don't know. But the deck that I picked for that, excuse my blabbering, the deck that I picked for that is the Fifth Spirit Tarot. This deck is comforting, it's warm, and it also reflects the color palette that I associate with a hot toddy. Browns, creams, and the ilk. This deck is a pippish deck that really embraces the literal when it comes to giving you an artistic interpretation of the cards. So it's really good for learning, but it's also really good for just straightforward reading. Sorry, I bumped the camera stand. I thoroughly am smitten, am infatuated with this deck. I love the color palette so much. It's so cozy. It's so comforting. And it feels like being wrapped in a heavy blanket. And for that reason, this deck is a hot toddy, right? Our next prompt, we have the Espresso Martini, an energy boosting deck. This one was tricky. So because we've already done one martini, I wanted to kind of build off of that. Our previous martini choice was a surrealist deck. And so, I dropped the fifth spirit. So I wanted to get another surrealist deck. And for this one, I chose my favorite, not my favorite deck ever, but one of my favorite decks for sure, the Zeke's Arcana. I have put this deck through the ringer. This is actually the second copy of this deck I've ever owned. I tell this story on this channel all the time, but the long and short of it is I cannot seem to take good care of this deck no matter what I do. I've spilled water on the first one. The first copy got creases in it because I riffle shuffled it too much, and it, like right along this backing here, it literally folded in half along the embossing. And so now I don't riffle shuffle this deck, but then I spilled water on it while it was in its pouch, and so the gilding started flaking off, and then somehow I ripped one of the cards. I don't know when or how I ripped it. I was just going through the deck one day and I found the rip, and while trying to see if there was a way I could hide the rip, I made it worse. And it's the King of Pentacles that's fucked up. Anyways, this deck is this is a take on the surrealism that is presented to us in the martini, but it's given to us in a much more energetic way, a much more good morning, let's get going kind of way. This is a deck that's done a line of coke before a business meeting to get in the zone. This is a deck that orders this is a deck that orders an espresso martini when they take their clients to a strip club to show them how much money they have. Like that, I don't know, there's something about this deck that's just very not quite, but a little bit Wolf of Wall Street without being that serious, I guess. Like, obviously it's surrealist, it's alien, it's sci-fi, but it's also, the Charlie lyric, do you have a little key, do we do a little line, or whatever that one is from, I want to say that's 365. So that's the energy that deck gives me. Love it to death, espresso martini, shape of the glass, etc. Next up, we have a Manhattan. I have no idea what's in a Manhattan. Jennifer at Bohemian Rose Tarot did break down this recipe, but I was barely listening because I had gotten ahead of the prompts at this time. Anyways, a deck to take your time with, to sip and savor. So whatever a Manhattan is, I assume it's very strong. I know what a Long Island iced tea is, but I don't remember what a Manhattan is. Anyways, for this one, I went off of the prompt. I didn't really give it, except that I guess this deck takes itself seriously in a way that a Manhattan the drink does as well. I do know that about it. Like, it's a drink for serious people who are serious drinkers, but also people who are seriously from New York. And something about that energy just really matches up with the Tabula Mundi to me. I have the Palm Perfect size. It's so cute. I love this deck. This is a deck that I would like to be able to turn to for everyday readings, but right now I feel very intimidated by it, and so I only pick it up when I'm either doing the work as in practicing, or shadow work, or like really trying to get some esoteric messages through, or I pick it up when I have a reading that I need that extra layer for. this has mostly been a practice deck for me. I use this primarily to practice my my Thoth and Thoth operations. This is a deck I like to sit with, look at, contemplate, break apart all the symbolism, get into all of the representations of the different esoteric layers and the artistic interpretations of how those energies should be viewed. This is a deck that you read slowly. It is a deck that you sip on. The Tabula Mundi. This makes me want to, and oh my god, can I just say, I feel almost offensive when I do this, but this deck riffle shuffles so good. Oh my goodness. It really is like slicing soft butter. Love the riffle shuffle of this deck. Next up, we have number 9, a mojito, a palate cleansing deck for when you need a reset. I love mojitos. I absolutely adore them, but I don't order them at bars. A mojito is something you get at a brunch joint. And so for that, I have selected, where is my mojito deck? This deck in this little blue pouch with the black drawstring is the Aquarian Tarot. And this is a deck that is minty, that is effervescent, that is, and maybe that's in part because of the blue backs that it has. I have trimmed mine and edged it in this bronze color. But this deck is a palette cleanser through and through. Like the coloring, especially this edition of it with this washed out coloring. Other editions are more vibrant, and this one is a little bit more sun-baked. And for that, it really does give all this white space that it has, all of this, I don't reach for this deck as much as I should because it is a very specific flavor. I love it, but it's definitely a crisp morning when you don't have much else to do for the next couple hours and you can take your time in the morning breeze. Like, that's what this deck gives me. It's not energized the way coffee is. It's not effervescent the way a spritz is, but it is bubbly, it is minty, and it it gives you that little flare feeling that mint does, where it causes the like the blood rushing to the area, and then your vessels doing the reverse of dilation, and I think contracting. Your vessels contracting and like sending the blood away, and like that cold feeling that you get. Oh, that's this deck. I love the Art Nouveau. I like this deck in theory, I think, a lot more than I do in practice, and that isn't to say that there's anything wrong with it, just that I don't reach for it as much as I should, but I want to, and I know this deck will have its day with me, that's for sure. Especially since I've trimmed it, and it's a little bit more pocket friendly. It's not pocket size, but it's like almost like chunky Fournier size. Anyway, I love this deck, and it is very much so the mojito energy for me. Next up, we have another brunch classic, a bit of the hair of the dog that bit ya kind of energy with a Bloody Mary deck. This one specifically to me is a meal in a cup. This is a deck that combines all of the necessary qualities for hangover treatment, right? A little bit of alcohol, a bit of salt, a fair amount of spice to boost your, oh, good gracious, I have to say it or my brain's going to freak out. Metabolism. So spice to boost your metabolism, vegetables to help you poop, and some kind of fat to help you digest it all, right? And to help it slide out clearly. Like that's what you want I hate to be so gross. No, I don't. I love to be so gross. But the entire point to me of a Bloody Mary is that it moves things along for you, right? It's basically like the dirty version of a detox smoothie, right? And after saying all of that, I want to be clear that this deck, I don't think this deck completely embodies that poop energy. But it is a meal in a cup, and that's the Lilifer Tarot. This deck incorporates, specifically the gold edition, incorporates the astrology associations that the Thoth system leans on so heavily, while also having strong elemental associations so that you could read it in a Marseille way. And then of course the imagery is loosely Rider-Waite-Smith based, so you get a little bit of everything in this deck. It really is a meal in a cup, and it's very brunch friendly with all this white space and this watercolor. So it's refreshing, it's substantial, and it's focused at the same time, right? So even though it's got all these disparate's not the word, all of these complex and far-reaching aspects, it is still focused in the way it presents them, and it still gives you exactly what you need somehow. Does that make sense? Have I explained this well? So for a Bloody Mary, I have chosen the Lilifer Tarot. This deck also shuffles like butter. So for our next prompt, we have the French 75, which is a drink that I had never in my life heard of until I watched Imogen's original video. And then the drink that was proposed as a replacement by Jennifer at Bohemian Rose, that one I had also never heard of. So I'm going off of the prompt here, and also the vague idea of luxury, which both of those drinks seemed to give off to me. And for that, I have chosen an out-of-print deck that has my whole heart, but which I don't reach for often because it is out of print and because of the system that it is. So this is a Marseille-style deck, technically, and this is the Honasa House 7th edition. Oh, I love these. I'm sorry, I had to play with it as soon as I got it out. The color palette here is, the 7th edition's color palette is stunning. It's so beautiful, and it's luxurious. This color palette is rich, it's royal, it's luxurious. And the system, Marseille style, I like to do as big spreads. And since I like to scan my cards and journal about them, I tend to do smaller spreads of about 6 cards or so, rather than a huge, 9 to 12 to 21 card spread, which is sort of the more fun way to go about reading Marseille. It's the more historically accurate way at the very least. And this deck gives me that special occasion energy. I have edged mine, which I know some people would gasp and clutch their pearls at. And in fact, in some ways I do regret it, only because I didn't have the perfect color to match the backs. On camera, it looks like it's perfect, but in real life, the undertones are not quite right. So I do wish that I had waited until I had the right color to edge it, rather than trying to blend 2 markers together, which is what I actually did. But it needed to be edged. The edges were showing wear and tear in a way that looked ugly and dirty, and now it just looks old rather than ugly and dirty. And I mean, maybe you think it looks ugly and dirty, but if that's the case, actually go ahead, comment it. If you think this looks ugly and dirty, comment it. That'll boost the algorithm, if nothing else. I don't care. So then we have number 12, the Aviation. A wild card deck for when you are feeling adventurous. I had no idea what an aviation was, so I had to look this one up on Wikipedia. Jennifer did not include it in her video. This was the prompt that she knew she was missing. She mentioned at the end of her video that she knew that she was forgetting one. It was the aviation. So I looked it up. Beautiful purple drink, stunning, and it sounds delicious. I was reading the ingredients and I don't remember what they were, but it sounded yummy. And so I wrote, on my notes, I wrote beautiful for when you're bored of cocktails. And so for this one's a little bit weird because this is not a colorful purple deck. Like the Aviation's color palette is really Jonas. This one is just a black and white deck, and that is the Wanderer's Tarot. I don't know that I would call this a tarot deck. I almost want to call this a tarot-inspired oracle deck. It's super minimalist. It really reimagines the suits, the courts, and the, to a lesser extent, the majors. And for those reasons, it does not feel like a tarot deck, but instead like its own thing. Like, obviously it's trying very hard to be a tarot deck, much in the same way the Osho Zen Tarot is trying very hard to be a tarot deck, but it goes its own way with individual card meanings and with the way that it presents those cards. It has two air suits. It has both feathers and knives, which confuses me, but the feathers are actually supposed to be connected with fire, and I try to remember them as being like spirit flight energy, but it's a very, oh goodness, how would I describe, this deck is dreamy. It is a very dreamy deck. This deck has the energy of the space in between being awake and being asleep. This deck has the energy of theta brainwave state. And for that purpose, it is a deck that you can turn to when you want to move away from the tarot that you know and love. This deck lets you shake things up a little bit and view the world in a different way, or rather view tarot in a different way. And for that reason, I'm giving it to the Aviation. Next, we have the usual. This is the last prompt from the original list of prompts from Imogen, but I do have an additional prompt, a bonus, which seems to be the trendy thing to do, is to add your own drink at the end. Even though Sapling Tarot gave us this prompt number 13, which allows you to fill in the blank with whatever drink. People like cocktails enough that everybody has added additional ones as well. So the usual, your drink of choice, and your most used deck. So I don't have a usual. If I'm at home and I'm making a drink for myself, I will basically either drink whatever sweet wine I can get my hands on, or I will mix gin or vodka with something fruity. That's my usual. When I go to a bar, my favorite thing to order is to wait for the bar to be nice and slow and then ask the bartender to make me something that uses clear liquor, tastes sweet, is vaguely fruity. Or floral, I don't care. I try to only, like, I've done this a few times when the bar was busy and then felt really guilty for it. So now I only do this when the bar is slow because, you know, if you're asking the bartender to think, you also should tip them very well. So this ups my tip if I ask for my usual. But if I want to be simple and the bar is busy, vodka cranberry juice, done. Give it to me with ice, give it to me without, I don't give a shit. A vodka cranberry is excellent because the bartender doesn't have to be good at their job to make you one. The recipe is in the name, and it's like a gin and tonic. Like, the recipe is right there in the name, but it's better than a gin and tonic because you don't have to deal with anything carbonated, so you don't have to be careful about the way you pour it. You can just slosh, done. So that one's what I order when the bar is busy. And for that, I have chosen, to nobody's surprise, the Star Power Tarot. This deck is definitely clear liquor and sweet fruit. This deck is definitely bartender's choice. This deck is definitely vodka cran. Love it to death. It is not simple the way a vodka cranberry is, but it is bitter, sweet, alcoholic, all at once. Love this deck. Love it so much. It's not my most used deck necessarily, but it is my favorite deck. Every time I reach for it, it feels like coming home. It feels like reading Stephen King, which is my favorite author since I've been like 11 years old. So like this deck feels like settling into the well-worn pages of The Shining, which does not sound comfortable, but trust me, it is. I love this deck. I highly recommend it. It is, I mean, like, it's not for everybody. The artwork is loud. But I love it. I love it to death. And that is my choice for the usual. Now, my bonus deck here, my bonus prompt, I'm going to try to move through it quickly because I've kept y'all for long enough. My bonus prompt here is the Cosmopolitan. The Cosmopolitan is basically what you order if you grew up on vodka cranberries, but you want to look like you know what drinks are. The Cosmopolitan is basically a vodka cranberry, but made of liquor instead of cranberry juice. And it's way more alcoholic than a vodka cranberry. It's usually way more expensive than a vodka cranberry, but for good reason, because again, you get to show off that you know what a Cosmopolitan is when you order it. So everybody's Cosmopolitan is going to be a little bit different. Like your Cosmopolitan may be whatever you call a Shirley Temple with alcohol, or your Cosmopolitan may be whatever you call an Arnold Palmer with alcohol. I forget the names of those drinks, and I should have looked them up before I made this video, but I forgot to. So that's what you get from me instead. And for that, I have chosen the Couture Tarot. This is a tarot deck that looks really complicated and looks really busy, and like there's a lot of hidden symbolism in it. But at the end of the day, it's just the other systems, but made out of fashion magazines. And so for that reason, it definitely gives me the same energy as the Cosmopolitan. It's got those airs about it that a Cosmopolitan does. But at the same time, it's also stronger, right? Like this deck incorporates Thoth. It incorporates Marseille, elemental energy. It's Rider-Waite-Smith. It's a little bit of everything. It also brings its own flavor to the table as well. So it definitely gives me that energy of the multiple liquors stacked on top of each other to create a flavor that's basically a vodka cranberry. That's what this deck is to me. I love it so much. I have edged it in this bronze color, which is one of my favorite colors to edge decks in. I love the imagery. I love to just sit with the cards. I enjoy doing, believe it or not, pathworking with this deck. So that, I mean, when I say pathworking, let me be clear. I don't actually know what pathworking is. I just stare at the cards and I get really into it, which I think is what people mean when they say pathworking. If that's wrong, I'm very sorry and embarrassed, but oh well. So that is my final choice for Tarot Bartender. Thank you so much for listening to me talk about drinks that I know nothing about. Thank you so much for listening to me talk about tarot decks that I know too much about. And thank you so much for listening to me talk at all. If you enjoyed this, I will link my whole playlist of tarot tags that I have done down below. I will also link my most recent video that I made before this one so that you can check that one out. That's a tarot journal with me at this time. Maybe I'll figure out eventually how to set it up so that it's whatever video that I've linked most recently, but I don't do end cards, so probably not. If you liked this video, please like it. That helps me out so much. Feel free to share it. Comment anything you think about my picks or about your own picks, or about alcohol or flavors or the word mouthfeel. Please also subscribe if you have not. Watch some more of my videos. Get to know me. I would like to get to know you, so please be commenting. The entire point of having a YouTube channel is making tarot friends. So I would like to give a huge shout out to all the people who regularly watch my videos. I say all the people, I don't know how many of you there actually are, but the metrics show that it's a nice handful, and that makes me so happy. Thank you so much for thinking that tarot cards are cool and that it's something worth spending time on, because it makes me so joyous. I love you. I hope you're having an amazing day. Drink water, take your meds. Mwah. Bye.